I think we're beyond the point where we can say that any ecosystem in New Zealand is natural.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's about managing. And I think those are the sorts of questions. Bioprotection's real role is developing those tools that help us manage those ecosystems.
He's right. There's nothing in Aotearoa New Zealand that is unmanaged. Like, you have to manage everything, even our conservation estates. They are not untouched. They are all touched to some degree. Was that light bulb, that 100 ways, was that the precursor for all that jokes that come out about how many people does it take to change a light bulb? I'm just asking.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
How many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb?
Is it one?
Yeah, one, but it has to want to change.
Yeah, that's right.
Kia ora koutou, no mai hauramo, my name's Nick Waipara. I'm here today to get this podcast on a roll. Under the Lens is a podcast where science talks back, and it talks back really loudly. And I have two amazing people. Professor Amanda Black, tell us about yourself.
I'm Amanda Black and I head up Bioprotection Aotearoa.
Kia ora. And Professor?
G'day. Hi, I'm Peter. I work for Bioprotection Aotearoa and do genomics.
Season 1, Episode 1, Bioprotection. Why does it matter? Why are we doing this podcast?
It's me, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're answering that question.
Why are we doing this? I think because we want to give our audience a taste of what bioprotection is. Nothing hard and fast, but really a teaser into the work we do and why we're doing it.
Ka pai. And you, Peter?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do really weird stuff with snails and various other things, and I want to tell people why it's important, because I think that they need to know.
I think they do, especially once you put it down through a lens. So we're doing a deep dive, everyone. We're doing a deep dive into science, bioprotection, who does it, why they do it, and where does it take us.
If someone says, what's bioprotection, and they could give a kind of technical explanation, and that's when I watch the eyes glaze over, because obviously, I've lost my moment to explain what it is in a way that most people can get it. And so I've kind of given up on that technical explanation that, we protect plants and we use science and a bit of research and try and understand, in our productive lands and sense of what we do. And so it goes down the very technical path. And I don't think that's been the right approach. And so we've taken a step back and talked about it in terms of it's a way we approach doing research that protects our landscapes. And for whatever use that our landscapes are providing at the time. And we have an intergenerational approach. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. Our approach is it's very intergenerational. It's not a siloed research approach, but it works across lots of research science disciplines to provide that sort of intergenerational understanding and tools to protect our landscapes.
So it's quite holistic. It's quite a wide-reaching, deep sort of concept. Because I used to think biosecurity, biodiversity, but it's something more than that.
Yeah, I reckon that's the thing that people need to recognise. We're all joined together by biology, and if it's our biological economy or our treasured ecosystems or indeed our own health and well-being, it's all joined together in that kind of biosphere. And I think our job is to try and see where we can add some knowledge and some ideas and some approaches that protect our fantastic biological heritage, our mountains, our forests, but also our productive lands and our people. So biosecurity is definitely in there, but there's lots of other things as well.
So in terms of that, do you think people like farmers, producers are open to that sort of concept? Do you think that they want to do this if it comes down to, let's say, economy alone? Is it something that is wider than that, or is it also the communities that are around the producers?
I think it's all mixed in together. Nobody is going to be able to produce continue to produce food and do a good job as being a farmer and a producer if they don't look after the landscape and the soils and the air and all and the microbes and the insects that are required for that. So I think that actually when you think about farmers and producers in this country, I think many of them are trying to look at new biological solutions to things. They're not really that keen on just spraying the same old chemicals that they have or treating everything in the same way with a kind of brute force chemical approach. I think they're more interested in saying, okay, how can we change our landscape and the way we work to produce better quality produce, but not at the cost of the economic value as well. And of course, all of that benefits community as well, right? Because then you've got a better ecosystem. Your rivers are healthier. Your beaches are nicer. So I think that all these things come together, but it's a really long road from talking to somebody at the farm gate about how they produce their food to actually getting to the point where there's some sort of protection of the environment in that region and in that farm.
So it comes down to health then, the health of the system or the ecosystem.
Yeah, and health, again, that's that very holistic term. You know, when people talk about health, of human health, for example, they're not talking about just blood pressure alone or just, cholesterol levels or whatever, or BMI. You know what we all think about. We've had this big discussion about.
Yeah, we all lose there.
We all could do to lose a few more kilos. But, it's a holistic approach. But again, it depends on the endpoint. So if a farmer, they want to grow grass to produce milk, right? So they need that ecosystem to be as healthy and productive as it can be to grow the grass to produce milk. And so that's their view and their position, and we talk to that in some of our research. And the other, if someone's growing food, they need to have it in a certain way as well. So it all depends on the endpoint, what the land is currently doing. And again, it's all different for our conservation sector. But as Peter said, biology is complicated and it's all very interlinked. And that's what some ways we're trying to do is understand these links and how they impact on one another, to have that understanding about this is what we need to do to have the land in this sort of productive state for as long as we can, and with minimal external inputs like fertilizers, like chemicals. And we don't have those. Those options are diminishing as we're talking right now. They're very much going through these options of pesticides, herbicides, fertilizer. They're all diminishing options. And so we're trying to look at different ways of protecting our land.
So it's something that is returning to a more natural state, or a more, I guess, less inputs. But how would you describe that? Would it be a natural state to produce food rather than like what we used to do when we didn't have herbicides? We had a shovel and a bicep.
I think
a bicep.
Or bicep or two.
Just a couple of biceps. Look, I do think that it's kind of hard to get to this view that if we go back in the past, there's a more natural landscape that's more productive or more safe or more healthy. I don't really think that's true, because the number of people in the world is increasing, and the way we've treated our landscapes in the past means that they're not natural anymore. There are parts of this country which are untouched and fantastic, but most of this country has got pests and weeds and diseases that have been brought in by humans. And the number of humans is increasing all the time. So I don't think we can say that we're returning to a more natural environment, but I do think some of that thinking about how we can use systems so that, we're thinking about how to get nitrogen into soil without plonking on the fertilizer, how to have the best crops we can, how to protect those crops so that we get that little boost in productivity that means that we can produce more with less. And I think that's the crucial bit. It's the more with less that we need to achieve. And that's really hard because, as Amanda says, biology is just so complicated, you don't really know what you're doing until you've started doing it.
Yeah, so that definition of bioprotection is coming down to how we do things on the land or with the land.
I think it's what we can do with the means we have, right? And it's living within your means. Like Peter says, we can't ever go back to the way things were, because that's simply not possible. Things are on a trajectory now, and we just have to manage that trajectory.
So we can't have the mower. and the Haast Eagle.
No, we definitely can't.
We
Soaring over
we can have
our...
a fatter version of the surrogate that they, well, for wherever they pick the surrogate, and it might be
Some
a great
emu.
thing. Some emu, some slightly taller emu, some slightly fatter South American bird, which I forget its name, escapes me.
Yeah, when something's extinct, it's gone.
It's kind of gone.
De-extinction is a myth which is about making money, and I think also suggesting that we can have unfettered destruction of our natural environment because it's all right. We'll just bring them back when we finished. Well, A, we've never seemed to have finished, and B, no, you can't. Most species have evolved on this planet for 4.5 billion years. We've got a lot of work to do to bring something back that we've made extinct. So I reckon it's our job to really think about how do we hold on to those species that we have, but how do we do that in a balanced way? So it's not about turning all the country into a conservation estate. It's about how do we ensure we get production and conservation and healthy communities and healthy society. It's not easy, right?
No, not when we've got peak cow or kaka scratching on the roofs in Wellington so you can't get to sleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I'd love to have it. I'm perfectly happy to have a kaka scratching on my roof.
First world issues.
When the kaka own my garden, keep me up. Yeah, absolutely, no worries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're welcome to it. Yeah,
No, I'm not against it. I'm just saying,
those Wellingtonians are complaining.
Sarcasm.
They can post them down to us.
you
First world issues, yeah.
Yeah, first world issues, because if you bring back nature a little bit or look after it a lot better amongst the ecosystem, there might be perverse outcomes like bring back the birds and they're crapping weed seeds everywhere. Next minute you got woolly nightshade because there's kīruru eating woolly nightshade. So, I mean, we have to adapt, don't we, in how we do things.
I think we're beyond the point where we can say that any ecosystem in New Zealand is natural.
Yeah.
And therefore it's about managing. And I think those are the sorts of questions. Bioprotection's real role is developing those tools that help us manage those ecosystems, whether it's the conservation estate where we have weeds, prolific weeds causing massive problems, or whether it's in our productive landscapes. Like if we have the tools that we can develop, which will help us do that management so we can get the balance we need, then that's what's needed. And that's where the science comes in.
So it's rebalancing, really, isn't it? It's getting that balance back. Because we're rather like unbalanced, unsweetened yogurt,
I don't know if it'd be called rebalance. We're always in some sort of state of flux, right? And so it comes from a point of reference, and you're never going to balance it the way people think, right? If you do this, it's not like zero-sum effect, trade off. If I do this, then this will happen, but I can, cancel out that effect if I, take these snails and put them in a fridge until I've resown that. I mean, this is the subject of our latest blog, Fridge to Freedom, which talks about the way that, managing land. So mining company comes in, scrapes off basically the top of the area that they're interested in mining that has all the coal underneath, and plonks everything. And of course, when it comes back, it doesn't work. And that's our point coming back to biology is complicated, right? And this very simplistic view of if we do this and then we put that back, it should work. It's fine. It doesn't. And that's part of what bioprotection is understanding is the complexities of these systems and what we can play with, what we can push, and what we need to leave alone. And that comes and talks about resilience, right? And then when Peter's work does is looks at new novel ways to manage some of these issues. And we can talk about that because it's complicated. And so it's about, he's right, there's nothing in Aotearoa New Zealand that is unmanaged. Like you have to manage everything, even our conservation estates. They are not untouched. They are all touched to some degree, right? And it's just it's how much you manage each of them and how much you want them to stay the way they are or whatever you need them to be. So if you need them to produce food, then you have to do these things. If you need them to be, a source of biodiversity and conservation for our birds and our other taonga species to exist, then you need to do these things. And so that's what we're trying to get at. So there's not one single reference point. It's multiple reference point, and they all are very interconnected. So it's not like they exist without influencing one another. So you often get like takaha. We spent years looking at takaha, working in takaha. You've got kiwi fruit producing land, you've got maize, and you've got the raukumaras in the background, and they all influence one another. And so it's sort of understanding that too. It's complicated.
Yeah, it is complicated. I totally hear that now. But how you've described it gives some opportunity and I guess, excitement really about what's in the future. So we're not having to do the doom and gloom, let's all give up now because we've got dirty rivers, no soil, rotting fruit, and peak cow. So, so there is opportunity to really, through bioprotection, really get some answers and some knowledge to really solve these problems.
Yeah, these are all solvable problems. It's just biology is hard. It's not like making a rocket. Some people go, that's rocket science. It's really hard. Try biology, buddy. It's a real pain.
Biology is hard. It's harder.
Are you going to ask any easy questions?
Yeah.
Wow, we can park that for now and we can go to... We've got a sense of what bioprotection is, but often you don't really see it or really know it till you see it in action on the ground. Do you think the communities are ready for it? Because you said watch Country Calendar and everything, every farmer, grower, person of the land is a saint, doing everything amazing. And then you hear in the truth of the community, we don't farm like that. They're just corporate lawyers farming llama and gold and this or that, some for the floristry market. And, they're still working part-time because they can't make it affordable. They're not real dairy farmers. So you do have that Country Calendar myth. Or is that something that is aspirational? Do you think communities want this when it comes down to $1?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the problem is that we need to find ways to ensure that when we are talking about productive landscapes, that people can make money out of it without damaging the landscape too badly. Again, it's about the balance. So I think there are people who are walking the walk and are working hard because, when it comes down to it, people love the places they live in, right? I mean, if you live up in the high country in Otago, those are incredible places, and to live there is a privilege, and to own that land and to be a steward of it is a huge, huge privilege for many people.
Shania Twain. No, sorry.
I don't know why you...
Sorry, I didn't really mean
No, but it's not a Nick conversation without a music.
but that is an example. Why is she living there? Because it is these remarkable environments. Now, those remarkable environments are not natural. Yeah. Right? That we think of them as being, this is a natural environment, but they grazed, they've been burnt. This is not what was there before people came. And is that a problem? I don't know if that's a problem as long as those landscapes aren't becoming degraded and actually people are making the money they need to live on the land. So I do think that those producers who are thinking about their future are going, actually we do need new tools. I work a lot with beekeepers and, they are always asking the question, what is the next thing? Is there something that can help us, produce more honey or combat disease or ensure that, we're dealing with different pollens in different places? And all of that knowledge is something that I think bioprotection needs to feed into so we can say, this is how you do this sort of farming to make the money. But while you're doing it, you can also do these other things. Things like, planting along rivers and ensuring that there are refugia, of native areas. All of that adds to the biodiversity of the landscape, and it's not a downside for most farmers.
Oh, that gives us hope then, because you do realise that there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I mean, farming is a lot of work. And all the farmers I know, like my grandparents are dairy farmers down at Otago. And it's hard work. I lived with them for a while. And, you get up very early, you go to bed very late, and it's hard physical work. So I appreciate that. And I think that Country Calendar remark is an interesting one because, every now and then, I'm not that old, but I will sit down and watch Country Calendar only because it's doing something of interest in terms of coming back to work-related things. And it's been a very curated view of farming in New Zealand. Country Calendar's, it's a show. It will give you one sort of edited version of what it wants and the flavour it wants. And at the moment, it seems to be very organics driven. And that has a niche. and I'm not anti-organics at all, but there's a whole lot of hard work that goes into organics. And I think people who aren't involved in farming or the productive sector don't realise that most people are in that to make money, right? And so everyone's like, oh, well, why don't we go back to, mara gardening or feeding the family? Because most people work the land to make money. Because there's two ways. You can grow food for yourselves and maybe small community gardens for the community, and that sort of, make a dent in your grocery budget. But most people are farming to make money, and that contributes to the GDP of the country, blah, blah, blah. And we can talk about economics of that later. And so those people are always interested in new tools. And that's where we do come in. We are way, way, way down the track of ever implementing these tools, just because that's our focus at the moment, is that kind of what we call blue sky research. And so that's very fundamental research that's way off from being implemented, but we are coming up with new ideas and different ways of doing things. And I think that's another key for bioprotection, is that we're looking at new ways of doing things, different things, novel tools and technologies as well, rather than tweaking what's already there and applying that. And that's options for people, but I can't remember where I was going with that conversation. I think I just want to have a little bit of a rant about country calendar.
Well,
it's very organics, and so it gives people.
What is this country calendar of what you speak?
It gives people this kind of this rose-tinted view of that everyone's into organic farming and stuff, and planting a bit of riparian. It's a little bit more than that.
But the organic movement, I think, is interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because it does suggest that people recognise that we can't continue the way we are. Yeah. I'm not sure that the organic movement has all the answers, and I think some of it is magical thinking, perhaps. But it does suggest that people are saying, well, okay, how we've done this in the past is damaging. How do we fix that? And how do we find a way to ensure that actually, our footsteps on the earth are light ones, right?
Mm. Well, you see, if you can do organics well, you get great prices.
You can do it well. You can't, but there's a limit to what you can do because of the limitations of what you can add to the system, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what limits it. You can't produce that kind of commodity driven by other sort of more conventional means, I suppose. Yeah.
Mm. So the way we do things has to change, but we need to have a lot more fundamental knowledge to really grow that change. Like if we were to go away from chemical dependency, i.e. fertilizers, herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, we're losing those anyway, aren't we? But
well, so I think that's the thing, is that it's important not to say all of these things are bad. It's actually to say, what is the outcome? So if we go, as I say, I work with beekeepers, and people spray insecticides on their fields to get rid of, some aphid or something, and that kills all the bees. That's a bad outcome. But actually, the idea that we could have targeted insecticides that wouldn't affect the bees or might affect the aphids, or ways of delivering these insecticides so that they're not broadly damaging, would be good. And part of the problem has been that we're hooked on broad range things. So we use chemicals that kill all the plants, all the broadleaf plants, or all the insects. And actually, I think we can step back and say, okay, are there other tools that might be more specific and enable us to control particularly the pests that we care about or the plants that we care about? And I think that comes into this question of sort of the genetic engineering debate as well. If we're using these tools in a way that actually makes the environment better and makes it more healthy and more resilient, then actually that's what we should be doing. The endpoint should be that, not chemicals are bad, or fertilizer is bad, or genetic engineering is bad. These are just tools to get you to this future state.
Yeah. We might park that because,
it was controversial.
Eating DNA is really bad for your health, I've heard.
Yeah, you're doing it.
But seriously, we will park that because that's another backstory or front story or snail story.
Yeah, they're rabbit hole type stuff.
Yeah, I just thought I'd dig out that rabbit hole and but
it's right. We're not chemophobes. We're not. What we're trying to do is light touch. But you've got to, because everything needs managing. It's like, what do you need to have that light touch to manage it to a certain state?
And what are you prepared to accept as the results of using it?
And it's the trade-offs.
Yeah. And that's a trade-off between, I guess, our communities in Aotearoa New Zealand around what people see farming doing. I mean, has that almost social license to operate became quite top topical a few elections ago about the swimmability of our water and the water disappearing, and Nick Smith in the streams, come in. It's it's still got effluent, but it's swimmable. But and then let's go through our aquifers that are getting nitrified, and all the fertilizers going through. But I think people still want to do things safely, and you saw that with even people in Ashburton. I never knew were out on the streets about their water. I mean, they've not been out on their streets last known since Coronation Street got changed from 7 to 9. But, even they cared, if you know what I mean.
Coronation Street.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm being...
It was good. I like that. That was...
I'm just saying people care, even in Ashburton, about their water.
I think this is crucial, right? And this is perhaps a really clear example of what we're trying to talk about, because those aquifers are absolutely crucial for water supplies in Canterbury or in Hawke's Bay. Our rivers are water supplies and recreational spaces for so many of us. And yet we're prepared to allow them to be polluted, and we're prepared to allow these events to occur such that we end up with groundwater with chemicals and insecticides and herbicides in them. Those are things that actually we probably can fix, whether we can think about how we might solve those problems so that we don't actually get cows going into rivers and we don't get the runoff of agricultural waste into aquifers. Then it's a question of saying, actually, this is something that we want to do, something that's important to us, and therefore we should do it. I don't think that any farmer in their right mind wants to pollute the local river, right? They want to stop that happening. It's just a question of giving them tools and technologies which will allow that to happen. And for us to be able to say, this river has become polluted at this point. What do we do about it? Has something acute happened? How can we solve that problem?
I think water management is also not necessarily a science thing. I think it's a political thing. I think we have all the solutions probably now to manage our waters effectively. It's just there's the inertia. We can't seem to get together and decide on a way forward because there's multiple users having a voice in the system, and and this is where the tension is. So while we could come up with maybe some research solutions to help in certain areas of water, the big problem is actually the management of water, it's the politics around the water.
Yes,
what she said.
The P word for politics. Yeah. Instead of poultry.
So I think it's
it's kind of polar bears.
You're showing your age with Coronation Street. I had to think back.
Well, I really should have said something like home and away, or
for God's sake.
No, I think no.
But that's still at the same time. However.
Yep.
Where were we?
I think making the point is science can contribute to answering some of the problems, like coming up with solutions in different ways and understanding things so we can, got some insight into our biological systems, which we still rely on. But at the end of the day, there's some things that science can't fix, and that's the politics around managing all these systems that we have. Yeah.
We'll make the tools, but somebody's got to decide to use them.
And that's the classic for science, isn't it? You can do amazing science.
Yeah.
Sits on a shelf, or
there's no pathway to market. Yeah. There's no way to get it to the.
Stop talking about my career.
Are you on the shelf?
Absolutely. Because I got his Coronation Street reference.
Well, if you put your thesis onto TikTok, apparently people might know about it.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. How can you put your thesis onto TikTok? Come on.
I'm not sure.
How would you do a TikTok for our PhDs?
My PhD is on how the brain of a fruit fly grows in the embryo.
And how would you do that on TikTok?
I've no idea, but it would have a it would have funky music track, right?
It would, a tick and a tock, and you've got the brain of a fruit fly. That sounds very TikTokish. Tick tock tock tick.
God help us, what's he on?
No, I don't know.
No. But what we're saying is science always underpins advancement, and I think that's an area where I think a lot of people are interested in good science and realise that science provides answers. But there's also that other side that it's how does it get taken up by the very people that it might be like giving you a teaspoon of vitamin saying, here, have this, but there's still producers or communities going, oh, I don't know about that, or I'm not sure I can do that with my operation. The operation we've got growing cherries, we're doing it this way.
Yeah.
To change something over that they've done for generations, putting that copper on and smoking out the frost.
But that's I think that's a really important point, and something that we always try and do is if we can work with farmers, with producers, with communities, such that it's not really scientists riding into town and getting off the horse and saying, oh, have I got a deal for you? It's about saying, what is it that you need? How can we help? And here are the tools that we have, and sometimes developing those tools with the community such that it's the transfer of that technology isn't difficult anymore because we've all done it together. It's
co-development, co-design.
I think that's the crucial thing. And it's really, at the moment, I think people are stepping back from this and saying, oh, no, that's not how science works. It isn't how science works, or it's not how it used to work, but it is how science gets implemented. That you do work with the people who have the need, and that's when you make change. And I think that's something that we kind of, at the moment, just forgetting at our peril, that actually the people who are looking after our land and our forests and our water are mana whenua, they are farmers, they are the people who actually are associated with the land. And if we don't work with them, then we can invent all the cool things we like, but they're never going to be used.
Well, they'll have the local knowledge or the mātauranga or just practices that have been putting them in good stead for, I guess, decades or longer. So, working with the knowledge holders of, whether it be a farmer or orchardist, kaitiaki, they will, I guess, input into the research or co-develop that research and actually influence the research, I guess. And that might be a way where the science actually benefits from that interaction between people on the land and people from education or universities.
Yep. I say that with some hesitation because I'm trying to form the words in my head. Co-develop or develop alongside. I think that's key in here because research, and I know that lately there's been kind of a fluid definition of what research is. Everyone does their research which means they go on Google and they try and find the answer that they're really seeking. So that's not true research. But I think coming alongside and it's like working with mana whenua or communities, it provides a context for the research, right? It's just not academics asking academic questions. It's like, these are our problems. Okay, so do I have the skill set or can I get people that have the skill set to help with this problem? And then you work together to come up with a solution. I think that's more, because I think when people say co-design, they expect people to get together around a table and, nut out a methodology or something that's very academic, what we do in research. It's not so much that, although it could be, it's context, again, it depends on what the situation is. And I think that's the most important part because then on the other side, the flip side of that, they get to realise that research is long, right? There's this expectation that if we sit around a lab for, 2 months, we'll miraculously come up with a solution to help them. Often it's years, months to years. And that's the expectation that we're trying to manage with people and communities who not do what we do on a daily level is like understand the sort of the length of time in the pipeline for research.
I think it's worse than that. You go, it's about length of time. It's not that. It's that research doesn't work. Science doesn't work. We fail continuously. My entire career it's just an epic load of failures, one after another. And then just occasionally something works and you've discovered something awesome. Okay. So there's a lot of trial and error. And as far as I can see, I do a lot of error and not a lot of trial. And I think that's something that as I said, biology is really, really complicated. You can't fix it in an instant. Even if you can say, look, I think this is the problem. The difficulty is turning that problem into something that you can actually work with. And so I reckon that's something that people need to understand is that research is slow and it's painful. because we're failing all the time. And alongside that is, colleagues get to comment on our papers and tell us that we're idiots, and then we don't get grants. And, so our lives are just one ego crush at a time.
Even for bioprotection scientists.
It's about...
I wouldn't say failure. It's a learning experience.
Your career's gone better than mine then.
And I just have a different take on it.
It's a learning experience.
It's a learning.
It's not failure.
So that didn't work. So I mean, because there's not 3 or 4 choices, right? And people don't see the kind of choices that we're faced with. They see the outcomes and the decisions and the outcomes. But when you're faced with a gazillion ways things could go, and we have to explore, we don't have endless amounts of money, so we have to explore based on our experience, half a dozen if we're lucky, paths that it could take. And of these, one might work or get us closer to one that will work. And that is science, like that is research. It just is one long continuum of learning experiences.
I mean, what's that pompous twat, what's his name, Edison says, right, when they asked how, he'd spent 3 or 4 years trying to make a light bulb and had tried 100 different methods, and they said, what have you learned from all of that research? Well, I've learned 100 ways not to make a light bulb. We do a lot of that. But that's actually, every bit of that knowledge is useful. Every bit is a step forward to finding the thing that actually is going to make a difference.
Yeah, so that's the importance, even though you might say it's failure, but if it's a negative result, you're not going down a dead path or a...
So that's that option out. Aren't you? But when you have people who aren't researchers who are going to benefit from your research alongside working, they can see the process.
Right.
And they understand why it takes as long as it does.
Yeah.
Because it's complicated and it's got a million and gazillion steps to it. Was that light bulb, that 100 ways, was that the precursor for all that jokes that come out about how many people does it take to change a light bulb? I'm just asking.
Yeah, probably. How many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb?
Is it one?
Yeah, one, but it has to want to change.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh.
There are all these light bulb jokes
I'm sorry.
burst out.
The light bulb joke.
I thought we were going to be laughing our asses off, but not light bulb jokes.
Is there going to be a bioprotection light bulb moment?
It's Nick's gone all serious.
Yeah.
He has. Nick to be funny.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to get to the nub of the problem.
And now I feel like this is really professional and I'm like answering an interview. But no, you've done really well, Nick.
Kia ora. I'm still trying to feel my way through to answer the question for the community or so what? The so what? Why does it matter? Why does bioprotection matter? Why does science matter that is trying to answer or fail? Then I guess the so what might. At these times of austerity, for example, if you had a 20-second elevator pitch to say, actually, don't pay those teachers more, give $1 to science, for example, how would there be a so what? You shouldn't really pitch people against each other, teachers versus police versus scientists, how does science do the pitch to say, in this complexity and the where science may not give you results quickly, how do you say that they're still worth the investment?
So, have you seen that? Have you seen that? There's a picture taken by some spaceship out around Saturn, and it's a picture through Saturn's rings of a little blue dot, which is planet Earth. And it's this tiny little dot in the universe. Everyone who has ever lived is on that dot. Ooh. And that dot is not, as we know, we can damage what's in there, we can damage the atmosphere, we can damage the land, we can damage the oceans, but that's the only place we know of where there's life, and it's certainly the only place we know of where there is us. We are intimately connected to the biosphere, to life on this planet. And my God, if that's not a really important thing to try and understand and a thing to try and protect and preserve, then I don't know what is.
Changing the topic, but not quite, we have this pathway for postgraduate students, the succession or the scientists, researchers of the future who are coming in to explore, to do their PhDs, masters, their learning to try and tackle some of these issues. They are tomorrow's researchers. And I guess that's the important thing about what we're doing, is also training tomorrow's scientists. And that's a key part of bioprotection, Aotearoa, isn't it? Is generating new knowledge with new people that are going to be working in our systems, our conservation, our bioprotection, our farming, providing those answers for the orchardists. It's going to be these postgrads coming through.
Yeah.
So that kaupapa or that purpose is a very good element of BA or bioprotection Aotearoa.
Yeah, I mean, science is a hideously long process for training. You know, you've got to do a degree and then a postgraduate degree and then a PhD, and then you all think, oh, I've got a PhD, I'm now a scientist. Well, no, then we make you do a series of postdocs, and then eventually one day you might get a job being a scientist. But all of that is necessary because it's about having people who can work on, who understand, have the knowledge, but it's not all about knowledge. It's often about how they approach these sorts of problems and how they think about the way they might apply their science. And I think our job is to make sure that we're training postgraduates and training new scientists to be the best they can be, but also training them to work in New Zealand, where, you know, we have all these unique things about us, unique people, unique environments, that, you know, we can't just take the ideas of how science works in Europe and plonk it into New Zealand and it'll be fine. We need to think about training the next generation of scientists so they understand our environment and in all kinds of ways, our culture, our approaches a lot more. Those are crucial things that all science does, but bioprotection, Aotearoa in particular, focuses on making sure that we're making the next generation of scientists the best they can be. We need them. Absolutely.
And do you find that there are students or young people, rangatahi, out there that really want to go on this pathway? Are there the students there to even do this work or do these studies? Is that less hard, more hard than it has been, or has it always been like that, trying to get a good student?
Interesting. It is a really hard road. It's a long way to go. But yeah, I find that there are people who really want to do it, but they need to be given the opportunities. And I think that's one of the things that we're seeing just at the moment is those opportunities are kind of drying up. It's a long way to train a scientist.
I think we're going to park where we got to today, but what we're going to do is explore this a bit further, see where these trajectories around what we're doing on the land, what we're doing with research, where we're doing it, how we're doing it, where does it end up. And so that's just a little taste of what's ahead for our wonderful podcast. We don't do this in a vacuum, let alone a vacuum cleaner. What do you want for us to put through under the lens in future episodes? Let us know what keeps you up at night and what you want us to talk about. Hit us at our socials, flick us an email and subscribe whether you ever get your podcast from. Give us a 5-star rating. And before I go, I want to thank the people at PodLabs who hosted us and gave us wonderful manaki. Thank you, kia ora. Donna Gibson for the wonderful graphics coming to a t-shirt near you, and Zohar, our producer. Ka kite anō.